Alright guys, welcome to my breakdown of Devstream 49 and my thoughts on the things they talked about and changes that have been made recently. This is the only second one that I've made of these overview slash breakdown type things, so I'm still trying to fix up a format. So I've kind of done this thing now, which is kind of a setup that is just all my notes and then me, so that you can see that everything that I thought was important during the Devstream, and then I'll talk about the things that I noted. And first of all, the big thing that they talked about right off the top is something that is really important, and it's the changes to Excalibur, which were a huge nerf to Excalibur, making him close to useless. We heard that this is possibly going to be affecting other frames, and possibly not affecting other frames. And a quote from Scott that I threw in here: "Some may get this treatment, some may not," which, if other frames were to get this treatment, it essentially means that some frames will be bad and some frames will be good, which we'll get to that a little bit on some other things that I noted. The underwater Arcwing stuff that we saw previously on a few dev streams is all scheduled for update 17. Nothing, it was super recently, probably like a minimum a month off. But for 16.5, we saw that we're going to be getting a tile set preview, and also a map in Conclave, allegedly. The new tile set, which is the Underwater Grenier Labs, is going to be Tyler Regor's lab, which I believe is on Neptune. That sounds correct. I believe Tyler Regor is on Neptune. And there's going to be an event for 16.5 that is also part of the tile set preview, so we'll have that stuff coming in the works pretty soon. 16.5 doesn't seem like it's super far away, so hopefully it's within, it's 27th right now. Maybe we'll get it by the 11th. Let's say the 11th. That seems like a good time frame where I would want it to be. More realistically, probably like 16th or 17th, a few weeks away. But moving on from that, we've got the level balance for the frames was mentioned in a comment from someone. And these are some of the things that Scott said that I'm going to go back to his top quote that I quoted to kind of talk about this stuff. The level balance for frames. He wants the frames to be useful at all levels of play, including high level play. And there is supposedly some sort of blanket damage solution in the works, which to me, what that means is that you would have a percentage increase based on the level of your enemies somehow, and you would still want that to be balanced, but with the way that they're dealing with damage currently, I don't know if they can achieve that. The raid showed them that certain frames are completely useless, notably Ember and a few others. Mostly Ember right now is still really bad, and it's not. I'm not saying that you can't complete the raid with Ember. I'm saying that she's bad for the raid, period, and endgame, period. You can still do well as her, but she needs to be looked at. That's my specific example of a frame that just doesn't hold up at high level. You can play them at low level, and it's fine, and everything's hunky-dory whenever enemies are below level 30 with any frame, essentially. But she just doesn't perform well on enemies that have any kind of toughness to them whatsoever. But that's just kind of my own little thing that we can talk about later if I want to go into detail about that stuff. Apparently their design philosophy wants all of the frames to be good. See, some may get this treatment, some may not, which means some frames will be good, some will be bad. So the design philosophy does not want all frames to be good. The design philosophy wants some of the frames to be good and other frames to be line of sight, is basically what that tells me. And there was acknowledgement that we're not there yet with all of the frames being a choice, like aesthetically and like by their theming and powers. And by what he said earlier, which is some may get this treatment, some may not, that means that some frames will always be good, some frames will always be bad. Because you can make frames good. It's not terribly difficult to make it a choice between what you want, and like there will always be something that is considered the best, even if two things are incredibly close, and the things being incredibly close is fine. Because people that are going to like go through, like me, and optimize perfectly are going to see those tiny minute differences as downsides. But the differences have to be tiny and minute. It can't be that a frame is shit or a frame is like a god amongst men. Like the difference between Loki, who has a kit that can do literally anything he wants, like you can just accomplish anything that you would need to go through, and a frame like Ember where you stop using your powers after enemies are level 40. Like that, the gap between these two is vast. So there's that stuff. I think that they have a lot that they need to look at in terms of how people play and how people want to play in order to get the balance to a place where you're actually choosing between frames. They also talked about questions about making the raid soloable. Absolutely not. That's not going to happen. 4-player minimum is what they're designing for. And for those of you that think that the raid is too easy, which I don't think it is too easy. I think it is too easy from an enemy standpoint and not too easy from a teamwork standpoint, because you do need a team to go with you. There's going to be nightmare trials, which hopefully will have rewards that are worth a shit, because my opinion is that the raid rewards right now are worth piss nothing. So there's that. The Void Trader rotations, they noted that a lot of items have been repeated, and there is actually a very good reason for that. Sheldon was actually like perfectly clear with what he wanted to get across, and that's that the goal was not to just get you to farm prime parts to turn directly into ducats so that it would burn you of all of your extra prime parts and that you wouldn't have them anymore. The goal was to give you extra rewards for doing what you were already doing, so they're going to rotate things back in that you would already have, so you're not spending like 2,000 ducats every time the Void Trader comes back. This also gives other players the chance to pick up things that they couldn't get, because obviously if you don't have enough ducats at the time and you wanted that thing, you want it to show back up relatively soon. Like, you don't want it to be 5 months before you see prime continuity again. So there's that. And that, I think, is great. And like, as I have a little mini paragraph here, trying to make the rotation valuable to all players and not make the Void a thing you always need to run every day for 2 weeks to be ready for new stuff. That's not fun. Running the Void constantly non-stop is what can burn me out of the game, as someone who has played roughly 2,000 hours of this game. It's not the way that I enjoy playing, and it's not fun, and people that complain that they're being burned out are often, they said when they go and look at what they've been playing, they've just been in the Void for weeks on end, and obviously you'll get burnt out from that. So they want to maybe make like incentives to not just stay in the Void, which we'll get to some more of that stuff later. In terms of other stuff that they're adding and working on, we have weapon augments, which they said more coming, and they said that they want to bring weapons that were maybe good in the early game and not so good at the end game up to where they could be used in the end game, which weapon augments are a fantastic way to do that, and I think that's awesome. And then they didn't really say much else besides that's what the goal is for weapon augments, and that yes, we are getting more. I really like the weapon augments that made the heck just so much better in my opinion. A few other weapons got boosts, maybe not as much as they should need to get where they needed to go, but the heck specifically, I think they succeeded in doing what they said that they wanted to do. And then Parkour and Movement 2.0, that Tenno Live preview of the Sentience showing up. Before that, that was a preview both of the underwater tile set and of where they want Movement 2.0 to go. Directionality on like wall running, while like running to the side of the wall, you want to be able to curve up and curve down. They're going to do wall breaking and zipline breaking, where you can stop and turn and move and look and like aim your jumps, and it's going to be a lot more specific is where they wanted to get it. They showed a few rudimentary animations and stuff for like just Excalibur, like very basic stuff. Not a lot there. It looks like to me that there are maybe too many steps in the animation to stop, but it could be quicker than it looks in an animation, because it seems like whenever we see an animation shown by itself, it seems really slow, but then whenever it's worked into the game properly, it seems like it goes much faster. That's just what I've noticed recently. And there's that stuff. That's all the stuff for Parkour and Movement 2.0 that I really wanted to touch on. There's one thing that I missed. Charged jumping and stamina revisions. Stamina, I think, is a huge problem right now that needs to be revised because we simply don't have enough of it, and modding for it isn't viable in 90% of cases. So I think that revising that will help the game as a whole, and that it would be a good change. Charged jumping, making it so that you can like jump, like do short hops and long hops based on like a charge, seems, if it was well implemented, I could see it being incredibly good, but I don't know where they're going to be going with that. And then, speaking of charge, we have the return of charge attacks, But unfortunately, it's not going to be maybe what you expect, where a charge attack is just a thing that you do first, or a thing that you like. It's not going to be like at any step of a combo. They're thinking about making it work into combos, which makes these charge attacks completely useless. It means that charge attack, like to take out your melee weapon and then do a few hits and then charge attack, is going to be basically completely useless. Which, that's just what I'm saying about it. There's no solid ETA on charge attacks coming back, but if they're worked into combos like that, they're going to be completely useless. Speaking of things that will not be completely useless, hacking. The Riot Moa is going to be the next new enemy, and based on what they said, I don't know if this is confirmed, they did mention that potentially the Riot Moa would be hackable from behind. And because the Riot Moa looks like an enemy that could be potentially tough to take out with a lot of armor, I think that is a good thing for frames that can go stealth and just hack into them and just have Riot Moas on your side. I really like the hackable pods for the Shockwave Moa to come out, and that stuff is a good addition to the game that can change up how you're planning to play. Okay, so that's almost all of the PvE stuff out of the way, and they talked for a long time about PvP, and I kind of separated these into two different categories for what they're going to be trying to do right away and what they're going to be trying to do in the future, which is short term, long term, obviously. Okay, in the short term, they want to make matching better with friends, because right now it's really hard to get on the same team as your friends. That's good that they know that and that they want to work on that. That's something that's like, you have to have that in order for people to generally have fun in your PvP mode. The other thing is the Cephalon Bug Fixing, which is one of the bugs where someone will grab a Cephalon and then quit out, which would make it turns it into team deathmatch, essentially. And there's still weapon tweaking. They still want all of the weapons to be at a better balance than where they are now, so those values are still getting tweaked back and forth. Melee as well is still getting tweaked back and forth, and what they want to accomplish, as we had a new person on the stream this time, one of the guys who is in charge of PvP, and seemed like he knew what he was talking about, like in like a good sense where he got it, like where things need to be. He was saying that the Kogake and the bow have the knockdowns, and they want to have it be like across all of the melee stuff that they add. They want them to have their own thing, which is like the reason to use this weapon. And I think that that is a good philosophy for melee weapons to have, because right now, he said that a lot of the other weapons are very basic, and the Kogake and the bow are the mobility choice and the knockdown choice, which is awesome. And he said that the Skana have that inherent stunning ability. So giving all of the weapons a thing that they want to, like the thing that they're good at, is going to be a good choice for making the PvP, in terms of a melee sense, better, and less of pick the one weapon that is the best, I think. Because I think that if they do it correctly, there will be counters back and forth. Okay, so that's all of the short-term stuff that they're going to be changing soon, hopefully. Probably within, like, previous to 6.5. But stuff that is 6.5 forward is this long-term stuff. Whenever new items are going to get added, and then I suppose this is short and long term, any new frames or weapons that get added to the game will go directly into PvP. There will be no wait. It'll be pre-balanced. Like, they'll be working on that immediately, and it'll come out and go right in, which is good, because you have to keep up on that. You can't just be behind all of the time, because people get their new weapons and their new toys, and they want to try them out. And that's a good way to do it. They talked about deathmatches on 16.5. Both team deathmatches and free-for-all seem to be on the table for that, which could be very, very fun. I'm curious to see if we switch up the maps for that kind of stuff, as some of the maps' spawn points may not mesh super well with sort of the different philosophies behind making a deathmatch as opposed to a team-based base capture system. But aside from that, Arcwing Conclave, there are no plans currently for that. I don't think Arcwing is ready as a normal PvE game mode yet, so I would like to see them fix a lot of that stuff first, and then maybe we can think about that Conclave. They kind of had the same reaction, as there are no current plans. The next mods that are going to be introduced, or plan to be introduced, to Conclave are the elements, so that you can change what your... I don't think you're going to be enhancing your damage, you're going to be changing what type of damage you're using. And the goal for the mods that got added before, which is your holstering speed going back and forth between weapons really fast, is that you're going to be constantly switching weapons during combat to get more damage out of them via what elements you're going to be using on those weapons, which is really smart, and it makes it so that there can be more tactical play. Other things that they talked about, on a side note that's coming up, PvP emotes that you would earn through Teshin. This is sort of... it's nice, but it's also not something that I really care about a whole lot in PvP. But I know emotes are something that a lot of people care about, and I wanted to put it on the thing to talk about. And they also mentioned very minutely, and I don't know if Geoff was even supposed to say this, that we may be getting emotes that are combined between two players. Like, two players could both initiate an emote, and then they would have an interaction between the two players. And they said that maybe if they had like a handshake emote, for example, that it would be different depending on if you're the same syndicate or if it's like a basic thing. And that kind of stuff. Most of that is just cosmetic, like back and forth, and can change at any time. None of the emote stuff seemed incredibly final, but it's nice that they are working on more stuff cosmetically for us and more stuff for rewards for Conclave, because more rewards is always better. Okay, and the last, and possibly the most, I'm not sure if it's the most important thing they talked about. It's the thing that I'm the most interested in, which is destroying how the Void works as it is now. Now, this is going to involve a lot of things. First of all, they're going to rework the entire star chart again, which is great, because I think the star chart as it stands right now is absolutely terrible. And what's going to happen is that they understand that certain places, like let's say Sedna Kappa, where a lot of people play to level up frames, and let's say, I don't know, Apollodorus on Mercury is where all of the early game farming goes on, and even some of the late game farming, if you want to come back and just get like a ton of rounds and get those early keys, like there are places on the star chart that are specific that people go to, while a lot of the other star chart remains completely abandoned. And I think they want to get away from that, which is good, because it's awful right now. You'll start up like half of the missions minimum on that star map, and you'll get nobody for like hours, which is unfortunate. This goes into another thing where destroying the Void doesn't actually mean destroying the Void, where it's like it'll still be a place that you go, and it'll still be a place that you get prime parts from, but it's going to be a gameplay thing where you don't just get a key and then go to the Void and then fuck off from the star chart forever. It's going to be like still there, but you're going to be accessing it in a different, hopefully better way that makes things less random and shitty. And they want to make finding groups better, which maybe includes a search function for type of mission, type of enemy, that kind of stuff. I could see a like server browser, in quotation marks, being a thing that they could do. And overall, it's going to be a massive simplification of the star chart, as opposed to having all of these options, especially for new players who don't really know where they need to go and don't really know what they need to do. And hopefully it will just make it better for everyone involved and make it easier for people to play together as opposed to apart, which is what is the goal of the game, is to play co-op with people and meet people and talk to people and run the raids and do the big groups and be friends. And that's what the game is. No word at all was said from Sheldon. Sheldon was kind of dodging a lot of this type of stuff, but there was no word on making prime farming less of an RNG bullshit hole. It is hopefully going to get better. Hopefully you can spread the prime parts out across, like maybe having 2 prime part chances, like you get these 2 things from this node, so it's going to be one of these 2 things. That would be very nice, and it would be much easier and way less bullshit to farm things that way. And the other, one of the most important, more of a new player experience thing that they're going to be adding is expanding quests and fixing their quest system, to expand it to the point where the beginning of a player's game is going to be mostly questing, so that they can get into the flow of doing missions and like getting things and like going for it, and having a lot of like quests to like help like get that, like the values of the game, I suppose, into people, which is good because it's really hard to do that. As someone who's like tried to get people into the game and like taught people how to, I don't know, how to set goals for themselves, I suppose. Like, if you look at something and you see it and you want it, like Chroma, for example, it's like, well, you have to do this, 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 and this to get Chroma. In the game, without someone telling you that, there's not really a good way to figure it out. So, I want to see them make things more clear when like people look at things and want to achieve them, how to do so. And I think that there's not really anything else important that they said. I think the only other important note is maybe that Rebecca wasn't there, So I feel like we got maybe a lot more questions answered, even if things maybe got a little more silly. But yeah, actually a lot happened during this dev stream. A lot of news that I was kind of happy about, news that I wasn't very happy about also, though, mostly the changes to Excalibur. Those things need to be looked at, and if people want me to go more in depth with how frame balancing and how people are choosing their frames right now, I can. Just ask me. I would be happy to do a big video on how you choose a frame for what job. So if you want to see it, let me know in the comments. Also, I like to say to everybody who's been sharing my stuff and who has been like showing like these videos to other people and sharing the channel and just commenting and giving me all this awesome feedback and all that stuff, I think that is amazing, and I really appreciate it. I shot up this like just this week, I think, from maybe 125 subscribers, and I think I'm at like 156 or 7 ish now. I'm not 100% sure on that. It's up there though, and it might be even higher now, and I can only say that I really appreciate it. Like 30 subscribers in 1 week is insane, and I like if that continues, that's amazing, and I love it, and I just really appreciate you guys sharing these videos with your friends and getting them out to as many people as possible. That's the best. Like, there's nothing else that I could ask for these videos to get to more people, and I just really appreciate it.